Recording started. And without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to you, Andre. Floor is yours.
All right, GM. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for coming out to Ready Layer 2. It's good to be back to another one of these competitions. I know we hosted another one, I guess, last year, and the winners and participants of that program ended up becoming very involved in the Stacks ecosystem and really building new tools and applications. So I'm expecting a similar result from the groups here. Always enjoy chatting with folks that are out here building interesting things on Bitcoin. So a little bit about myself. My name is Andre Serrano. I've been in the Stacks ecosystem since 2019. I first saw Manib speak in a meetup in New York back in 2017. The project was still called Blockstack at the time, and when the Stacks mainnet launched in 2021, it really captured my attention and imagination for what was possible to build on Bitcoin. For folks that were involved in the space at around that time, there was this thinking that all the innovation that we see happening in other ecosystems would eventually find its way back to Bitcoin. And I feel like this past year and a half has been really validating. We've seen the explosion of ordinals and BRC20s and all these new fungible token standards. And it's just good to see people experimenting on Bitcoin again, looking to unlock new use cases to make Bitcoin a productive asset, and new ways to, and really a medium of exchange to really start to use it in different use cases. So anyways, great to be here today. And I have a few slides here that I'll go through. It's probably around like 15, 20 minutes tops. We'll spend most of the time answering any questions that you guys have at the end. So I guess on that note, we'll dive in. I wanted to start out talking about the Bitcoin thesis. You guys are already here, so I probably don't need to sell you on this, but really Bitcoin is the best money and settlement layer. Bitcoin has a predictable monetary supply. And I think for that reason, it makes it a really good store of value. As a settlement layer, Bitcoin has over 100% uptime has 100% uptime over the past 10 years and growing. And it's proven over this time to be a very secure and reliable base layer to build the future of the digital economy. And so as a result, we're seeing more capital starting to flow into the Bitcoin ecosystem as institutional demand is growing. Obviously, a lot of money is coming in through the ETFs right now, and that capital will eventually find its way to startups that are building on Bitcoin and building out this vision. And it creates this nice flywheel effect where basically like more capital comes into Bitcoin that that essentially creates more fee revenue for Bitcoin through increased usage on the network. That revenue basically increases the security budget for Bitcoin as more miners will come online to basically try to capture some of that fee revenue. So it creates this nice flywheel effect where we're seeing that starting to play out now and all the activity that we're seeing on Bitcoin. And lastly, that Bitcoin will scale in layers. Bitcoin by design was really intentional to be conservative at the base layer and not add a ton of expressivity and new features in order to limit the potential attack surface or limit vulnerabilities on the base layer. The thinking that basically if Bitcoin is going to be this global store value sound money system, it needs to be really, really predictable. And as a result, I think it's now clear that layer twos will have this role of basically helping to scale Bitcoin and enabling some new functionality. Okay, so we've established that Bitcoin is the best money, the best hard asset out there. But the problem is that building on Bitcoin is hard, at least for now. So there is a lack of expressivity of building on Bitcoin. And so it makes it really difficult for developers to build decentralized applications. We've kind of mentioned, I know a lot of developers are experimenting with ways to do things on Bitcoin L1, but it's not very easy, right? It has a very limited scripting language, and isn't really designed for these sorts of applications. Two is that Bitcoin has been in a high fee environment. I know the screenshot was taken a few months ago, but we've seen Bitcoin's fee market basically go to around 300 up to 500 sats per VByte. I think right now it's come down. I think it's probably in the mid double digits, but my prediction is that we're going to be in a higher sustained fee environment for Bitcoin, given all of this activity, given all of the activity around ordinals and trading on the L1, that we're going to see that rise. And so that'll naturally push more activity to L2s like Stacks that can offer cheap and efficient transactions as part of this. And the last part of that is the slow transaction times on Bitcoin L1. So Bitcoin blocks are produced every 10 minutes on average, which, for the vast majority of Web3 users that have gotten used to, speeds on Solana, speeds on Ethereum, and other sort of smart contract platforms, that's just not a good user experience, not a good developer experience. And so, again, that activity is going to move to Bitcoin L2s like Stacks that can decouple block times away from Bitcoin. So, talking about the problem, now let's talk about the solution. And so we can spend some time talking about the Stacks Nakamoto upgrade. And really, this is a decentralized layer 2 scaling solution for Bitcoin that is secured by Bitcoin. So it receives Bitcoin finality and security guarantees so that trying to reorg a transaction on Stacks would be as difficult as doing it on the L1. And it ultimately enables you to create products that are backed by the world's most secure and decentralized blockchain and activate the world's largest crypto economy. These are the main thing. When you hear Nakamoto upgrade, these are the main things that you need to think about when you hear that. And this upgrade has been talked about a lot in the Stacks ecosystem. We're really excited about it. It's basically the product of over 12 to 18 months of work have gone into this. And so basically what it entails are faster speeds. So it'll bring transaction times down an order of magnitude, roughly 5 to 10 seconds on average. We'll receive Bitcoin finality. So again, 100% of Bitcoin security budget. Stacks will no longer fork on its own. So it'll always fork with Bitcoin. Stacks will receive better Bitcoin miner MEV resistance. So that is helping, again, really to improve the security of the Stacks network. And then lastly, we are upgrading the Clarity virtual machine to integrate it with WASM. This basically provides significantly faster execution times and other performance improvements for the Clarity virtual machine. Okay, so we talked about Nakamoto. I guess the one thing to mention for Nakamoto that's also really important is that it enables an upgrade to the Stacks consensus rules that are required for sBTC. And so one of the things that it does is that anyone who locks STX in consensus as part of the proof of transfer consensus mechanism will basically be required to run a validator node. That means that you're actually contributing to the network's liveness by helping to validate new Stacks blocks and to process sBTC deposit and withdrawal transactions. So what is sBTC? It's a protocol that lets you move Bitcoin in and out of the Stacks blockchain. It's implemented as a SIP10 token that's backed one-to-one against BTC. It addresses the problem of limited expressivity in Bitcoin script. So you have the full power of Clarity smart contracts that can be used to build new DeFi applications on Bitcoin. And I think one unique thing about sBTC is that it's operated by an open membership set of signers that are economically incentivized to maintain the security of the Bitcoin that's held in the threshold wallet. That's different from many other types of Bitcoin backed assets that we've seen, where it's basically controlled by a single custodian or a closed federated group of signers. And so this seeks to improve on the state of the art of what we see there. Here's how it works in practice. So a user would send Bitcoin to the sBTC protocol multisig. The Stacks nodes basically read Bitcoin blocks. So those Stacks nodes will be running a Bitcoin node along with the Stacks node. And they'll basically read those blocks, be able to detect that Bitcoin transaction has occurred. And then they approve that transaction, and sBTC is minted on a one-to-one basis onto the Stacks network. It requires a 70% threshold of validators to agree that this transaction is valid. So that's an important aspect of the underlying security model that makes all of this work. And then once sBTC is minted, you're free to use it in DeFi. You can trade NFTs with it. You can create other sorts of dApps and use it in a variety of use cases on the Stacks network. Here are a few key features that I think are worth calling out. So we're working on providing really seamless minting and onboarding experiences. So there's no wrapping fees. So it's the cheapest way to move Bitcoin into Web3. Again, no central custodians, and you have really fast deposit and withdrawal times. They'll be fulfilled within approximately 1 to 2 Bitcoin blocks, which is faster than any of the other bridges that we see on the market. It is designed to be as Bitcoin native as possible. So when sBTC launches, sBTC will be the unit of account for all transactions, including gas and network fees. I think what will likely happen is the V1 of this basically would entail some sort of an atomic swap that happens at the Clarity or wallet level, where sBTC is swapped for STX under the hood. So it's abstracted away from the end user. But I think the long-term goal, the long-term design goal in the project is to accept sBTC natively as part of the protocol. And also it includes liveness incentives for signers. So basically for this validator network that I mentioned, for performing that function of approving deposits and withdrawals of sBTC, you earn native Bitcoin rewards. So Stacks is the only protocol that allows users to earn native Bitcoin as part of consensus. So if you think of like a proof of stake network, I think like 2 key differences to keep in mind are that the roles of miners and validators are distributed as opposed to them just being with the validators. And 2, it's that for staking STX, you're actually earning a different currency than the base currency. So you're earning native Bitcoin. I think that's a pretty unique differentiator and something that you could probably build a lot of interesting applications in. We have deep wallet integration. So some of the top leading Bitcoin and Ordinals wallets have been incubated in the Stacks ecosystem. So we have Lether and Xverse. And so that allows us to build really richer experiences around how we use Bitcoin and how we can interact with sBTC in the broader DeFi ecosystem. So here's just like a snapshot of some of the use cases we're excited about. Some of these have actual teams that are building on them. So, take like sBTC stacking yield, for example. I think there's like a lot that you can do there. And Papaya is one example that you could look at where they're actually, enabling you to deploy sBTC directly in their in their AMM, and you get essentially a liquid staking token for Bitcoin, and you can redeploy that in DeFi. There's a variety of DeFi use cases across Zest and Alex and Arcadico, offering everything from over collateralized lending platforms to decentralized stablecoins and trading venues. Alex has been doing a lot with BRC20s that we'll talk about later as well. So definitely focus a lot on DeFi. And yeah, there's a few categories here that I think would be interesting to explore. So sBTC as like a ZK privacy use case. I think that's something that has been underexplored. That I would love to see use cases to transact with Bitcoin privately. So that might be something to think about. There's all the categories on here. I think there's a lot of potential, and I'm happy to go into more detail on any of these maybe towards the end. So as far as like the top primary use cases that we're focused on for now, I'd say the first is definitely DeFi and trading. And the reason for that, it's super important to be able to build these sorts of financial tools and primitives that helps to basically build DeFi liquidity for sBTC and the DeFi ecosystem on Bitcoin. And so, I think that there is a wide open opportunity to basically be the best platform that allows you to do native Bitcoin lending and borrowing. So you just post your Bitcoin as collateral, take out a loan against it. Everything can be sort of seamlessly abstracted away on the back end. Even just like being able to use Bitcoin or like to trade Bitcoin on chain to access stable coins, or to deploy it, maybe use it as collateral that you can then go and earn a yield on it, or maybe trade it in some sort of derivatives platform. And there's pretty much a blue ocean of opportunities that we can build, thinking around like the DeFi ecosystem for Bitcoin. And again, part of the reason that's interesting is because Bitcoin is now over $1 trillion asset. And a lot of these basic tools don't really exist right now. And so, I think there's a big opportunity to be early in this market. You can still be early. And yeah, the next use case that I wanted to talk about is scaling ordinals and BRC20. So I think this is super interesting for you guys. Ordinals have basically they've effectively proven product market fit on the Bitcoin L1, where it's now a multi-billion-dollar market. There's several new standards that are emerging. So I have BRC20s listed here. There's also runes and others that are emerging. And so I think that the thesis here is similar to the way that we spoke about sBTC, where or trading ordinals today still has a lot of friction on the L1. And if you're a smaller holder, retail investor, and you want to buy an ordinal in a high fee environment, it makes it very difficult. You're going to end up paying, $50, $100 for this ordinal that maybe that's could be 50% of the price of the ordinal. So basically, a lot of this activity is going to move to the L2. I believe that moving forward, some of the most active ordinals markets will be based on L2, and we're starting to see some of that infrastructure fall into place around ways that you can actually bridge ordinals onto stacks. And so once that happens, I think there's a lot of really interesting ideas that I would love for this group to explore. So, once you have fast, cheap, efficient ordinal trading and BRC20 trading, what could you do with that? How could you build liquidity? Are there any other applications or infrastructure that you think would be interesting? And yeah, we'd love to see your ideas around this, because it's something that I think we're seeing a big opportunity for, and we could be happy to explore that further. There's probably more use cases that we can talk about too, but I'll just quickly go into the roadmap. So this is where things currently stand. Yesterday, we actually announced the pre-launch Nakamoto testnet. So we're really entering into one of the final stages before Nakamoto goes live. And then the final testnet is scheduled to go live in 2 weeks on March 25th. There's a lot of work being done, and that activates basically the signer rules and all this new functionality into the testnet. And the main net is scheduled to activate in 2 phases. The first phase would essentially enable signers to register intent to activate on mainnet, and basically the code is deployed at this point. And then that period basically allows us to have a really seamless upgrade process. It'll likely last 2 to 4 weeks, where we can just ensure that signers are ready for the final upgrade. And then the final Nakamoto mainnet activation will happen likely sometime in early May. And the exact Bitcoin block that will activate has not yet been chosen, but will be chosen soon. And then sBTC will be out in Q3 of 2024, likely just a couple of months after Nakamoto, because most of that work is already fairly well scoped. So yeah, we're in sort of like the final stages of this. There's a lot of energy and resources going into sort of like having a smooth upgrade and going through that process. And yeah, again, excited to go deeper on this with you guys. This is it for my presentation. Happy to take any questions that you have and spend more time on anything else that you all want to talk about.
Awesome. That was really great and helpful too. So thanks for doing that, Andre. Hopefully a lot of folks here took away some things for the first time. I have a question here from David Fernandez in the group chat. What are the requirements for becoming a validator of sBTC?
Yeah, so I'm happy to link you to some of the documentation that we have for that. The requirements, I'll say at a high level, it includes running a Bitcoin D node, a Stacks node, and software that we call the signer binary. This software just basically includes the logic for which blocks should be approved as part of consensus, and later it'll also include the logic for sBTC. Those requirements themselves, I don't think that they are too that they're too intensive for you to run. I'm going to link you to the documentation in just a second, as soon as I can find it. Yeah, everything that you need should be basically in this link that I just dropped. And if you scroll down on this page, it includes the system requirements to run a signer. So 8 gigabytes of memory, 150 gigabytes of storage, and then yeah, keeping the signer binary running basically 24/7 to ensure that the protocol remains live.
Another question, Andre, related to maybe this is the use case side of things. So you're walking through sort of scaling ordinals and as potential use cases. What are some maybe use cases that are related to DeFi that you have heard about, talked about, but you haven't really seen get launched yet in the Stacks ecosystem? For your context, as this competition continues to go on, there's 3 major tracks here, and DeFi being one of them. So I'm curious if you have any thoughts or anything that you want to share, any tips really for the people who are here tuning in who might not have been selected their final idea that they want to build on yet. Do you have any, as somebody who spent lots of time researching and building in this space and connecting with other influencers in the space, are there any types of use cases that are related to DeFi that you think the Stacks ecosystem and the larger Bitcoin L2 ecosystem needs to see get launched and built?
Yeah, definitely. I think that, when I think about this question, I always come back to what are the incentives for the early users of sBTC to, move their Bitcoin into the system and become active participants. I think one of the biggest things is around looking at potential yield generation opportunities. So I think there could be something interesting worth exploring of like, when you look at the DeFi ecosystem on Stacks, what are the best ways that we could, start to deploy that yield? So one example could be, maybe there's an innovative use of the proof of transfer mechanism that allows you to basically deposit Bitcoin and earn a yield on the Bitcoin that you've deposited there. We probably need to figure out sort of how to approach some of those use cases. I think there's a lot that we can explore. I think like even just like basic sort of like DeFi tools that could abstract away a lot of the complexity for users. So right now we have, you know, a quickly growing ecosystem of DeFi apps on Stacks. You could, use Zest Protocol or Bitflow or Hermetica. And, I think one thing that we're missing is like an aggregator. So is there like one simple platform that would allow you to take out a loan on Zest and, deploy it, deploy USDC in Bitflow and like be able to earn additional yield and, try to abstract away as much of that process as possible from the end user. There could be some interesting, opportunities for payments here. So, if we take that same train of thought, it's like basically, transacting Bitcoin in the future will be more expensive. It's still going to be slow. And so, could there be payments infrastructure that exists on the Stacks network that could help with that? Could be, a cross-border app or, a B2B payments business or something like that. And so as part of this competition, would love to see the thinking around validating some of those use cases. So when you think about potential use cases for Bitcoin, how do you think about the market opportunity for these different sorts of payment use cases? And are there things that you could do to, improve the user experience of things that don't currently exist? Yeah, those are a few that come to mind immediately.
Well, those are great tips, great things for people to be thinking about who maybe haven't taken the time to explore too much of their idea yet. So thanks for weighing in on those. We're doing great on time. If other people have questions, feel free to just raise your hand, unmute your mic. Feel free to just spit out your question. Otherwise, you can use the chat as well. So yeah, anything else from the group? It doesn't necessarily have to be a question either. If there's something in the talk and the slides that Andre walked through that you'd like to see spent more time discussing, maybe unpack certain things of the overview a little bit more, we can definitely go back and review some while we have the time. So if you have any uncertainties of any area, feel free to step forth and ask those now. Going once, going twice, anything from the group?
Adam, I'm curious, like while we're waiting, if I'm curious if most folks here already have their idea and they've started, or they're still kind of exploring. Um,
Yeah, so I would from what I've gathered so far, it's probably a mesh of the two, where the way that the program is designed is we kicked off on Friday, we had some workshops, we shared a bunch of learning resources, we had some more workshops yesterday. You're the first of two workshops today, and then one more workshop tomorrow. And then once the workshop wraps up tomorrow, then mentor sessions will begin. So when the mentor sessions begin, I think that is when majority of the participants will start further exploring a lot of their ideas and having conversations with mentors about what you were just saying, kind of like how to validate some of those assumptions in this market, the way that they would need to demonstrate during their final pitches. So there has been one inquiry that I've received about submitting their project already. Personally, it's a 2-week builder competition, and we're kind of just getting kicked off. So there's plenty of time. There's a lot of time left for people. But yeah, right now it's still kind of in that exploratory phase of where am I trying to take my idea, and kind of like how do I want to sit on this idea and present it for the judges come the 24th. But there's still a lot more of sort of validating and assumption verifying that needs to take place before people will start getting into like the bigger builds. But with those three tracks that I was saying before, there's a DeFi track, there's a Bitcoin and AI track. Those are both going to be on the hackathon side, and then we have a general pitch side of things where people don't need to necessarily submit code or any functioning product. It's just submitting a slide deck of what their idea is. So more to come on that, but right now there's only been like maybe one person. There's been one person I think that's been sort of set on their idea. Everyone else I think is still kind of in that research phase. I kind of like this flipping it around though, Andre. If you have other questions that you want to ask the group, I also encourage those. Otherwise, if no one has any more existing curiosities, we can wrap this up early. I will go ahead and stop the recording, and I will share the recording on the Ready Layer 2 YouTube page. That link has been shared in the dev post. It's been shared in Discord, so you'll be able to access that. If there is something that you want to go back and review and see a little bit more, or hear Andre explain it a little bit more, you'll be able to do that. And if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. We do have Andre's availability as a mentor as well. I think he doesn't have any scheduled sessions, but we can tee up maybe some sort of asynchronous mentor AMA in the Discord as we have with a lot of the other mentors. So if you have any questions, if you want to ask Andre something, maybe the further you start to explore your idea and the correlation with sBTC, feel free to ask that in the Discord or just email me at adam@stacks.org and I can get you sent over to Andre's mentor AMA and you can take things from there. But other than that, I appreciate you taking the time, Andre. Thanks for everybody for tuning in. This will conclude this workshop and I will share it into the Discord and we'll see everybody there.